Good morning and welcome to Pitt to the Point. I'm Jamie Ely.
And I'm Josh Byrne. Pitt to the Point is the University of Pittsburgh's one-hour news magazine program that covers events, news, and stories right here at the University of Pittsburgh and its regional campuses.
Pitt to the Point also covers the City of Pittsburgh's news, sports, politics, and events, as well as national and international stories.
Well, we're excited, as always, to get into all of the happenings right here at Pitt. We're going to begin our show today with an update on the war in Ukraine, and we have a very special guest.
Joining us is the University of Pittsburgh economics professor, Timothy Milovanov.
Professor Milovanov is not your ordinary Pitt professor. He also lives and works in Ukraine as an occasional advisor to President Zelensky and is also the president of the Kyiv School of Economics.
He is also the former Minister of Economic Development, Trade, and Agriculture for Ukraine.
To talk about the latest conditions in both Ukraine and about the conflict with Russia, we are delighted to be joined live over Zoom by Professor Milovanov. Professor, welcome to Pitt to the Point. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, sir. Now, you've been in Ukraine since the start of the war. How have you noticed things have changed over the the course of the past year?
Correct. I came to Ukraine several days before the war, and today is 1 year, and it's hard to believe that it has been a year and the fighting doesn't subside. One thing which is clear that Ukraine will continue to exist as a country, but this atmosphere of determination among the Ukrainian people continues to be there. From the day one, I think people were resolved to continue to fight and to protect their nation. In many ways, it's an independence war for Ukrainians. But I think what has changed over the year that it has become very, very personal for so many people because people have lost friends, loved ones, family, children, parents, sisters and brothers. And so there's this grim, strong, very mature, very adult-like commitment to the fight, to the resistance, to the defense effort.
Now, Professor, I actually stumbled upon your Twitter page last night, and I noticed that you made a very powerful post just yesterday documenting the events 1 year ago of the first day of battle. There were scenes of tanks driving right past your car with children at the helm. How do these current days right now compare to the first few days of battle that you publicized on Twitter recently?
Yes, it is true that I was going through my photos a year ago just for myself yesterday, and I couldn't, I was overwhelmed by this ability of Ukrainian people to just simply do their job. And the tweet you are referring to is we were driving somewhere towards safety because the village, the suburb in which my sister's house was, where we were supposed to meet if something was happening, and we went there. That village was close to be overrun by the Russian paratroopers, so we had to move further. And as we were moving away from the Russian paratroopers, Ukrainian tanks were coming to defend that village and to defend that airport, which was closed. And this were, 18-year-olds there, 19-year-olds, kids essentially. And, I hope they survived, but I'm not very optimistic about that. And they knew what they were doing. They knew where they were going, but they kept going, And it's just what dawned upon me is that on that day, just everyone was doing their jobs. And I think that's the secret to survival of the state. When things get tough, when there's a tragedy, everyone just has to do their jobs.
Absolutely, sir. Now, kind of speaking on that Ukrainian resilience, how did you stay in the fight for so long? At first, this war was thought to be over in 2 weeks, but we're going on a year like today. So how did that Ukrainian resistance play into elongating the war?
It is unfortunate and tragic that the war goes on for so long, and I'm afraid it might go for longer, for much longer. I think it will end by at some point Russia, something snapping domestically in Russia. We already see a lot of signs where there is political infighting within the military and within the government, but it might take a long time. And so how do Ukrainians get through this? I think Ukrainians, they simply do not think about it, how long it's going to go for. They go day by day. But what keeps them together is that there is a very simple objective. There's a unique objective. We have to survive. Tomorrow we have to survive, and today we have to survive, and the day after tomorrow we have to survive. And I think that helps people put aside their differences, put aside any political intrigues, organizational frictions, all kind of egos, and focus on working together. And I think this working together is what gives support to people to go on every day.
That's really interesting you brought that up, Professor, because there seems to be some sort of cultural dynamic between citizens of Ukraine on the western half who are deeply rooted with Russian culture and in the past have been more open to be affiliated with Russia, whereas people on the eastern side are more for being part of the European Union. So how has that dynamic changed or evolved throughout this conflict?
It's hard to me to say because I do not experience that. That's not my perception. I think the perception is that I have experienced meeting people is more of that fact that in Ukraine, people think that in the first place, it's a human, it's a person, it's a citizen, and then the state goes second. Whereas in Russian culture, or what this military are bringing in, is that the state is on the first place and human life is not, is worthless essentially. Now, that being said, I have met people from the east of Ukraine, from the Russian-speaking parts of Ukraine, who were extremely angry with me for speaking Russian to my wife at some point. Now, I'm, at home before the war, and actually before 2014, my native language is Russian, but I'm a Ukrainian, and I'm politically Ukrainian, and as a citizen, I'm a Ukrainian. Culturally, I'm Ukrainian, but we do occasionally speak Russian, and so I was caught off guard by someone from the eastern Ukraine who, supposedly are pro-Russian or somehow. They are not at all. They were so angry at me that I was speaking Russian, even though that's their language too. They were saying, listen, don't speak. These are the invaders. We will never speak that language again. So there are that dynamics too. So I think Russia, by its invasion, simply has shown to everyone, whoever had some doubts or was wavering, about their true values. Because if they were really acting in the interest of any people, as they are saying, and propaganda says that they are protecting someone, in the east of Ukraine. Well, they are protecting someone in Mariupol by killing tens of thousands of people in Mariupol. So, they are liberating people, quote unquote, by murdering them. And I think that's what people now understand. That has become clear to everyone, to whoever was even contemplating something alternative. It's unfortunate it is that way. It is unfortunate that we have to pay this price in lives. It should not be happening in the 21st century, but it is happening.
Now, switching from sort of the culture of Ukrainian citizens to more policy regarding the war, recently reports came out that China is providing aid in the form of money and weapons to Russia to fight this war. How, as a Ukrainian citizen, do you and your fellow citizens react?
Two things immediately. One is that, it's unfortunate that China has, China could have stopped this war in the very beginning, the first weeks of the war. It could have told Russia that we're not going to give you support, stop it, and they didn't. So they're responsible for the war in that way. More recently, well, that's not the first time they have been providing technology to Russia. That's just the first time or maybe one of the first times we are publicly talking about it and reading it in the news. From the accounts from the war theater, I know they have been leaking technology and making it, tilting the scales towards Russia. So there's no news for us in Ukraine. There's no news for Ukrainian people. And, how does it make us feel? Well, they're helping Russians to kill us, and that's not good.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Milovanov. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank
From
you.
all of us here on the show, please stay safe, Professor. We're going to be thinking and praying for you. And for all updates as this war plays out, stay tuned right here to Pitt to the Point.
Now, in domestic politics, there has been a recent uptick in shootings, and one policy from Josh Shapiro might possibly affect this.
Absolutely. Josh Shapiro has recently come forward and publicly took a stand against the death penalty. Now, the death penalty hasn't been used in Pennsylvania since 1999 and only a couple times since 1976. But with the murders of police officers recently, people are thinking about bringing back that legislation. And for more on this, we're going to turn to our political reporter, Alexandra Ross, who is sitting down with University of Pittsburgh's chief of police. Alexandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Josh. Police shootings have been on people's minds recently, as there's been a number of highly visible incidents in Pennsylvania. Just today, a funeral is being held for Temple police officer Chris Fitzgerald, who was shot and killed last weekend. And over the past couple months, Officers Sean Slegansky of McKeesport and Chief Justin McIntyre of Brackenridge were also killed in the line of duty. I'm here with Chief James Loftus of Pitt Police. I imagine that even if you don't know these officers personally, that these losses are something that really reverberate throughout the police community.
They do. And, I have a frame of reference, and my frame of reference is 40 years long. That's how long I've been in this business. My family frame of reference is over 100 years with my wife and my father-in-law in law enforcement. So I've grown up knowing people intimately who've been touched by this type of violence, and as a broad spectrum across the country. In my 40-year career, there have been over 2,500 officers across the country that have been killed by gunfire.
And have you seen over that past 40 years, and especially in the last maybe decade or so, that there has been an increase in anti-police sentiment and violence, or do you feel that it just feels that way because there's a lot more visibility with social media and things of that nature?
Over the length of my career, I believe there's an ebb and flow. And I think people much smarter than me are tracking that ebb and flow, and they can see it's related to events that are going on in our country. It's not hard to imagine that anti-police sentiment is very high when we see some of the horrible things that we've seen play out in social media and on body cameras.
Mm-hmm. And with those atrocities happening both against police and by police, how do we build more community between, or a stronger relationship between the community and police officers who are serving them?
I think we have to hire and train and retain the best people possible. And then we have to get out there and we have to connect with our community, one person, one contact at a time. That's what I preach to our folks. Every contact you make, if you stop someone on the street, they stop you and they're asking where Presbyterian Hospital is, make that a positive contact. It's a small thing, but it's something that someone may remember who doesn't have a lot of contact with the police.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Temple Police Union has said that Chris Fitzgerald, who died last weekend, did not have a partner to patrol one of the, quote, most dangerous neighborhoods in the city. Have police shortages also impacted University of Pittsburgh police?
We have shortages, but they have not impacted us yet. And as a matter of fact, our applicant pool is as strong as it's been in quite a while because of some of the programs that we're doing. The applicant pool across the country is down 45% in the last couple of years. People are exiting pre-retirement at an 18% higher rate, 45% higher rate in retirements. So the applicant pool across the country has become very, very shallow, and we have to be aggressive to compete in that pool.
Mm-hmm. What impact does that have on the community when you're not able to have a full police department?
The stock and trade of police departments in so many ways is their response time. Our response time, if there's a criminal incident, if there's an accident, if something happens here on campus, our measure of how we're doing and how our manpower levels are is how quickly can we get there. Pardon me. Right now, from the time we receive a call until we have an officer dispatched and they arrive on the scene anywhere within the campus, we're about 2.7 minutes. That's a very good response time in a municipal city environment. We're committed to keeping that or even improving that response time.
Mm-hmm. And that response time is very important in emergency situations. Another incident that's been really on people's minds and on top of the news cycle recently is the shooting that took place at Michigan State University. 3 students were slain, Ariel Anderson, Alexandria Werner, and Brian Frazier. 5 other students sent to the hospital. 1 remains in critical condition to this day. So can you tell us a little bit about how Pitt Police prepares for these active killer situations and makes sure that when that does happen, they're able to respond quickly and effectively?
You know, one of the great things about working in a university environment is we don't celebrate the fact when all of our students leave in the summer, but it is a time where we can do a lot of training. And a lot of that training we do during our downtime is relative to our response to potentially active killer scenarios. So we're training within the police department. We're also training externally. We've trained over 3,000 people on campus over the last few years in active killer protocols. So typically what happens is, let's say you're in the cathedral, you worked in the cathedral in a certain department, we would come in, train you in your workplace so you understand the best way to exit, where you can hide within your workplace, barricade in place, and how you can move around the building if that kind of threat evolved.
Mm-hmm. And so if Pitt Police were to receive a report of a potential active shooter situation on campus, what's the protocol like right away to deal with that situation?
If there was a scenario, an active shooter scenario, the call would come in, everybody would go. Not only would you have the University of Pittsburgh Police Department, you'd have the city police, you'd have the sheriff's office, you would have all neighboring police departments. Now that sounds fine in theory, but in practice, we had an incident right over here at Western Psychiatric Hospital in 2012. The Pitt Police Department was on the scene, I believe it was 51 or 52 seconds, and engaged with the subject at that time. He was ultimately taken into custody.
Mm-hmm. And what can students do to make sure that they feel safe and prepared for these kinds of emergency situations on campus?
We're constantly preaching awareness. And awareness can come in several different forms. It can be aware as you're walking across the campus and not have your face in the phone, but just paying attention to what's going around them and not being afraid or reluctant to report things that seem out of sorts.
Definitely. That's great advice. We want to thank you for coming down today and for your insight. For Pitt to the Point, I've been your political reporter, Alexandra Ross. Josh, Jamie?
Thank you so much, Alexandra and Chief Loftus, for joining us today. Coming up, the latest update on health insurance in America.
And this professor is developing the next generation of wheelchairs.
And DeMar's back in the public eye. Guess where he was this past week?
We are the University of Pittsburgh, forged in a blue-collar city with gold standards, where innovators, researchers, thinkers, and healers are always reaching for new heights. There is no limit to what we can accomplish when we put our minds, our hands, our soul, and spirit toward it. Here, progress is always in progress. Hail to Pitt, proud partner of the ACC.
Welcome back to Pitt to the Point. Have you checked out our website yet? Well, if you haven't, I suggest you give it a look.
If you want to see all your Pitt to the Point faves and stay up on current events, check us out at pittothepoint.com.
And if you want to learn about the magic that happens behind the scenes and see more of our good-looking team, check us out on social media.
You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Pitt2ThePoint and on Facebook at Pitt to the Point. Check it out.
Now, if you rely on Medicaid or CHIP for health insurance, your coverage could be running out soon.
Due to a federal law passed this past December, almost 4 million Pennsylvanians could be losing insurance protections granted during the pandemic.
The Families First Coronavirus Response Act offered coverage for most recipients, regardless of eligibility.
This has led to a scramble to find or retain coverage. In an effort to remedy these concerns, the PA Department of Human Services has started sending out mail, emails, and texts to remind those eligible to reapply.
Benefits turned off. That could mean that they show up at the pharmacy and they can't get their medications, or they end up in the emergency room and suddenly they find out that they're uninsured. I would say we're really worried about younger folks in particular, because no one really looks at the mail. I think it's really about younger people knowing that this deadline is kind of coming up, and that the state's going to really only use these 3 modes of communication, and that they prefer the mail, which is something that no one else does.
The human engineering research laboratories have long been finding new ways to improve medical technology.
One of their members is Dr. Rory Cooper, and he was recently developing a new kind of wheelchair that can climb curbs and, get this, even handle uneven terrain. For more on this, we turn to our medical reporter, Joey Tebben. Joey?
That's right. Navigating city life can be a struggle for people who use wheelchairs, but innovations continue to be made in robotic wheelchair technology every day right here in Pittsburgh. In today's Pitt to the Point Medical Minute, it's a trip over to the Human Engineering Research Laboratories and a look at the very important wheelchair work of Dr. Rory Cooper.
Your eyes do not deceive you. You're currently watching a wheelchair climb up a curb on its own. That's the Mobility Enhancement Robotic Wheelchair, or MEBOT. Dr. Jorge Candiati of the Human Engineering Research Laboratories may be in the driver's seat, but it's the MEBOT that's doing all the work. The MEBOT is one of the leading innovations of the Human Engineering Research Laboratories, or HURL, a collaboration between the University of Pittsburgh, UPMC, and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. At the head of the program is Dr. Rory Cooper, engineer, inventor, professor, U.S. Army veteran, Paralympic medalist, Cheerios box honoree, seriously, and of course, founder and director of HURL.
So I founded the Human Engineering Research Laboratory about 29 years ago. I started because of my own disability. I have a spinal cord injury that I received while I was serving in the Army. We identified the problems that people with disabilities have, or they share those problems with us, then we work together with them to attempt to solve those problems.
Thanks to his work at HURL, last year he received the IEEE Biomedical Engineering Award for his work, and just a few weeks ago, he was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. He's also, of course, the principal investigator on the MEBOT project.
And the idea is to provide a wheelchair that would be able to climb curbs, to level over uneven terrain, to reduce the risk of accidents and allow people to go where they want to go. Try to make the world a little bit safer and expand the mobility for people with severe disabilities.
The MEBOT is still a few years out from public use, but as with all publicly funded projects, Dr. Cooper says it takes time to make sure you get everything right.
Obviously, if we've got a lot of influx of money, we could hire more engineers and we could go a little bit faster, but we want to move deliberately and safely and come up with a good quality product.
One of the next developments in the MEBOT project may be to get the wheelchair to climb multiple stairs, but as Dr. Cooper said, they're taking the program one step at a time. And also, I know what you're going to ask, they did let me drive the wheelchair. It was pretty incredible, and if you want to see all my hijinks in that, and also hear more from lead investigator Dr. Jorge Candiati, you can go to pittothepoint.com a little bit later today, click on Medical Minute. There will be some super special bonus online exclusive footage for you to enjoy. But for now, I am your Pitt to the Point medical reporter, Joey Tebben. Jamie and Josh.
Great stuff as always, Joey. I saw that video. I highly suggest you do too. That was a chaotic ride, wasn't it? It was a fun scene last week at the Pitt, not just because Pitt men's basketball is having their best season in years, but it saw the return of Damar Hamlin.
The Panther football legend was seen rooting on his hometown team in the stands. It was accompanied by Pray for Damar signs and overwhelming support from the Pitt faithful.
Of course, Hamlin played at Pitt as a safety before making his mark in the National Football League with the Buffalo Bills.
It has been almost 2 months since Hamlin collapsed on the field in a game against the Cincinnati Bengals, and we are so happy to report that he appears to be doing a lot better.
Great to hear, of course. In other sports news, a Pittsburgh Panthers athletics coach recently suffered a heart attack.
Now, Panther athletes are being taught how to administer CPR. For more on this, we welcome in our city sports reporter, Nick Faribaugh. Nick?
In May 2022, Pitt Associate men's head basketball coach Milan Brown collapsed on the floor of the Peterson Event Center. He was suffering cardiac arrest, and he only survived thanks to the quick work of 2 people, Terry Mitchell and Amy Anderson. But after his situation and the terrifying situation with Damar Hamlin in Cincinnati, there is a new push around Pitt athletics around the importance of CPR and AEDs.
On May 9th, 2022, Pitt Associate Men's head basketball coach Milan Brown collapsed. He was going into cardiac arrest, but without the help of an AED, he wouldn't be here.
Two things that were told to me from the doctors for sure is that it was almost like a drill. And if the people had not done CPR the way they needed to, and if the AED had not been applied to me, I definitely wouldn't be here because I was gone.
An AED is an automated external defibrillator. It's critical for those experiencing cardiac arrest. But so is CPR, and Pitt athletes and coaches are brushing up on their skills.
My personal opinion, every single person should know CPR, as many people as possible, but in particular sports teams, coaches and players should all know CPR and should understand how to use an AED, because we do know that these kinds of events can happen on the field, whether it's from trauma or some underlying heart problem or heart defect.
Knowing your CPR, you need to have that, you need to be equipped with that, because you just don't know where you're going to be and what's going to happen.
And with DeMar Hamlin returning to Pittsburgh on Tuesday, he and Milan Brown share gratitude.
It's a sense of gratitude that you have and thankfulness that you can tell in his spirit. I hope you can tell in mine that we're truly two people that can definitely say you need to take advantage of the day that you live in.
After Tuesday's game, Milan Brown actually met up with DeMar Hamlin. They're going to talk soon about their shared experience. They're going to chop it up, as DeMar said. And for more on this story, you can check out tomorrow during the Syracuse Pitt men's basketball game on ACC Network. We'll have a full package airing on the show, so make sure to check that out. For Pitt to the Point, I'm City Sports reporter Nick Faribaugh. Back to you, Jamie and Josh.
Thanks, Nick. Coming up, we'll check in with Jamie's alma mater, Lancaster Catholic High School, on our college and high school reports.
And imagine waiting years simply to reserve a parking space. Well, that's the current reality at this Pittsburgh parking lot.
Also, a legendary Pitt basketball athlete had their number retired this week. Find out who it is when we return on Pitt to the Point.
We are the University of Pittsburgh, forged in a blue-collar city with gold standards, where innovators, researchers, thinkers, and healers are always reaching for new heights. There is no limit to what we can accomplish when we put our minds, our hands, our soul, and spirit toward it. Here, progress is always in progress. Hail to Pitt, proud partner of the ACC.
Welcome back. Since 1913, the Pitt News has been producing groundbreaking and top-notch journalism, and we are so proud to feature them here on the show.
Here are the top headlines from our award-winning newspaper. It is the Pitt News on Pitt to the Point.
Candidates for next year's Student Government Board began their election cycle at the Meet the Candidates event. In the upcoming elections, there are two slates, the Illuminate slate and the Disrupt slate, as well as independents Corvin Macher, Matt Zurich, and Braden Issermayer. Voting will take place on March 21st from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Students at the University of Pittsburgh have created a startup company to promote safety and confidence around campus. Underdog holds classes that have both an information session and a self-defense lesson. In addition, the organization spreads awareness of resources around Pitt's campus. Last Saturday, the University of Pittsburgh wrestling team clinched the share of the ACC championship title for the 2023 season. Pitt competed in a match against Duke University, where they won 43-3. Pitt now looks to their upcoming competitions in the ACC and NCAA tournaments.
So I've recently covered two of their games, their past game with UNC and recently with Duke, and to see their progression, I've seen like a lot of team building and team bonding. Probably like the really up close photos that I've done in a different perspective, in a different point of view. That's like not from a fan's point of view.
Well, after a week off, we are so excited to be showcasing the talents of the next generation of broadcasting. And this week, we're taking a trip back to good old Lancaster Catholic High School to see what's happening over at Jamie's alma mater.
Now, I don't know about you, Josh, but I'm thrilled to have my high school back on the show. Just 3 years ago, I was anchoring at that same desk. Who would have known I'd be on a globally streamed show? But back then, I would have been petrified. But Chris and Kira are so talented, they've got it in the bag. Let's send it over to them and see what's up with Lancaster Catholic.
Thanks, guys.
My name is Kira White.
And I'm Chris Cavender.
And we are dual enrollment students of Lancaster Catholic High School.
There are so many activities and clubs to choose from here at our school, but the most show-stopping of all is our drama department.
Every year, we put on 2 productions, a fall play and a spring musical. In December, auditions were held, and after much deliberation, the cast was selected. Since then, they have been working nonstop to put together their next production.
A stage adaptation of the popular movie Anastasia is the focus for this year. To start, each cast member attends a choral rehearsal where they learn their part, whether it be lead, supporting role, or ensemble.
Next, the focus is turned over to the director, who helps stage each scene and action. Although it may not seem like it, this is the most important part. Not every movement on stage is blocked, though. Thanks to choreographer, dance is introduced and adds a special flavor to the style of theater.
Costuming also helps to transform a bland stage. Part of the fun is dressing up and created a time period long past. All of these things are what make productions at LCHS, but there's so much more that goes into it that people don't see. We talked to some of the cast members to see how they've been getting ready for the show.
Today we're learning the dance Paris Holds the Key to Your Heart.
I'm trying not to fall in love.
We're working together as a cast and really trying to grow our relationships with each other.
Yes, true that.
That looks like a cast that loves what they're doing.
If you want to see the show, it opens the 16th of March and runs to the 18th.
This has been Lancaster Catholic. Back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Chris and Kira, giving me flashbacks to my theater days at Lancaster Catholic. Good times, good memories. Now, I have to ask, this is a bit of a hot button issue around the halls of Lancaster Catholic. What has been the best production put on in recent years?
I would definitely have to say last year's Once on This Island. It was a great cast. I was in it, so I'm a little biased, but it was just so amazing, and we had sold out every night. It was so awesome.
Agree 100%.
Well, thank you so much. I can agree too. I heard it was amazing. Thank you folks so much.
Thank you.
I'm sure Chris killed it in that show. Anyways, the University of Pittsburgh has many positive attributes, obviously, but easy parking is definitely not one of them.
As anyone who lives here has noticed, it can be nearly impossible to find a legal parking space around campus.
Yeah, legal, that is the key word. One highly sought after parking lot is located at Soldiers and Sailors. The only problem is that it allegedly takes up to years to reserve a spot. For more on this crisis, we turn to our Pitt beat reporter, Michelle Spiller. Michelle?
Thanks, Josh. Professors and faculty members have to find parking every time they come on campus for work. On-campus parking locations should help with this, but sitting on the wait list isn't doing much. The waitlist to reserve a spot through the university is available to the public, but many aren't aware of how long this waitlist truly is.
From students to professors to faculty members, parking on Pitt's campus has been a struggle for everybody. The waitlist for a lot spot goes back to people who have put their names on the list in 2008. This rallies up the question, why is the list so long?
Okay, so I started July 1st, 2008 as a faculty member. My name has been on that list since July 10th. So 10 days after I started, I made my way back to the parking office to get my name on the list.
Being told by my faculty mentors that the 2 things I should sign up for, whether I thought I needed them or not, was childcare and a parking permit.
I completely agree that it's a huge frustration for everybody. A lot of the places that we did have lots were open lots, which is also terrible for the environment.
It's just a kind of silly situation where there is no obvious solution to this.
There's no guarantee anymore for any spots right now on campus.
So I'm hoping I will be teaching here for a long time and eventually I will get a parking pass. But when, and I have no idea.
Although we weren't able to find a clear answer on Pitt's parking plans for the future, the university seems to be aware of the issue and is working to find a long-term fix. But currently, there is no clear ending in sight. For now, take advantage of the public transit systems and throw your name onto that wait list.
We reached out to Pitt Parking for a comment, but they have yet to respond to us. For now, just check out our website for any updates that will be posted there. Also, if you're looking to learn more about Pitt Parking or to check out those wait lists, you can go check out the Pitt website at pts.pitt.edu. From Pitt to the Point, I'm Pitt Beat reporter Michelle Spiller. Jamie, Josh?
Thanks, Michelle. Can robots paint? Stay tuned after the break to find out about one robot that's trying to solve the mystery once and for all.
And also, this is one of the most decorated basketball players in Pitt history. Is it Brendan Knight or Jerome Lane? Find out who we're talking about and why we love them coming up on Pitt to the Point.
Welcome back to Pitt to the Point. We are delighted to be joined by a Pitt basketball legend.
Currently sitting in the lounge is Jennifer Bruce with our Pitt sports reporter, Tanaja Riera, joining virtually. Tanaja, the floor is yours.
Thanks, guys. So today we have a Pitt Athletic Hall of Famer with us today, Jennifer Bruce. Her jersey was retired on Sunday at the Pitt women's basketball game, and we're going to sit and ask her some questions about how this experience was for her. Good morning, Jennifer. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, great. Good morning. So what were your first thoughts when you came back to Pitt's campus?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm there a lot. I come to see the women's play all the time, and I come see the men's games as well. So I'm on campus pretty often. But it was great, as usual.
Now, why was this event so emotional for you?
Well, I think it brought back a lot of memories. I think brought back a lot of memories being on the basketball court, even though I never played at the Pitt. Just to have my teammates around, to have my friends around, and obviously my great family brought back a lot of memories. And I think the emotional part came from me thinking about my parents and how happy they would have been, or they are, seeing this honor.
Now, I want to ask you, what is your balance between now becoming a nurse and basketball? Like, how was that in school for you? Like, how did you manage both of those things?
Yeah, it was pretty tough, to be honest with you. Actually, my clinical experience at the University of Pittsburgh was very difficult, and plugging that in with basketball and traveling and practices made it kind of tough, but somehow I managed and I made it through. I just remember specifically coming from University of Indiana. We had a red-eye flight, and we got into Pittsburgh about 6 a.m. and I was doing my clinical rotations at McGee Hospital, and I had to be on the floor at 7 a.m. So I'll never forget that as long as I live.
So just to follow that up, in my other classes that I have, like, there's student athletes who were pushed to not do things like nursing and dental because of clinicals. So what advice do you maybe have for them that are being pushed into doing business and communication to handle that load?
Well, I was very, very fortunate and very lucky to have a great staff, including my head coach, Judy Sauer, and also my brother, who was my assistant coach, we actually had practice around my schedule. Now, I'm not sure my teammates like that, but that happened pretty frequently because there's only certain clinicals that you have to do early in the morning and throughout the afternoon. So they were very generous in moving practices a couple times for me. But I was also in the help of our academic advisors. So they really helped me at University of Pittsburgh. They were great with me with getting resources and so forth and so on to allow me to continue through the program.
Okay, and then last but not least, so the WNBA was not into effect until around 1997. So what if you had pursued that if, say, you were a little bit younger?
You mean a lot younger, I should say. I think I would have. You always want to continue your career if you can. But I also wanted to get into my profession of nursing. I felt like I spent a lot of time there and I really wanted to get into that. But I think I would have definitely tried to go the WNBA route.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. And we're glad to see you in the upcoming future.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. From Pitt to the Point, I'm your Pitt sports reporter, Tanaj Riera. Now we're going to go over to David to talk about different robots in the business and tech.
Thanks, Tanaja. Frida Kahlo, a famous artist from the early to mid-1900s who is known for her self-portraits and surrealist art, is being honored in Carnegie Mellon's robotics department. CMU Robotics built and developed a robot using artificial intelligence to make art appropriately named Frida.
From students to professors to faculty members.
Meet Frida. Named after famous artist Frida Kahlo, Frida is a robot that physically paints an image generated by artificial intelligence. Peter Schaldenbrand, a Carnegie Mellon robotics grad student and Pitt alumni, comments on how the goal of Frida is to promote creativity in robotics and to have artists and scientists learning from one another.
I wanted to maybe develop some tools to help people like me engage with art and help me get these ideas out into the world in the visual space. I hope it is another tool for artists too. And I think the crossover is really interesting to see. I think both people in those fields could benefit from learning about the others.
Frida works like some artists would. It figures out how to paint its artwork along the way in a sophisticated process rather than just painting a generated image.
Exactly. It figures it out along the way.
Really? Okay.
And it'll have maybe like an initial plan of what it's doing, but then as it executes, that initial plan is what it thinks will happen. But obviously you're working with paint and it's super unpredictable, right? So it's going to be a little bit different as you go, but it's taking pictures so it can alter that plan as it goes. So the final painting will look different from its initial plan, and all throughout the whole process it's altering its goals.
Artificial intelligence helps robots like Frida create the eye-capturing art it does. So much to the point where many artists begin to speculate how much is AI replacing them, and do artists need to catch up with technology? However, Peter confirms that that is not what Frida was made for.
Robots at their finest are helping people. They're making things safer, they're making new tools to have new capabilities, and that's our goal with this project, is really to augment creativity. We're focused on helping people.
Frida's development team looks to expand robotics in the art industry, taking it to new heights with hopes of combining art and robotics together. Frida hopes to carry its name with each other and hopes to basically combine the two together and to carry its name, tackling adversity and facing new challenges every day, carrying on Frida's legacy. For Pitt to the Point, I'm your business and technology reporter, David Altman. Jamie, Josh?
Thank you so much, David. I know I would love a painting robot more than anything in the world.
That sounds awesome.
Coming up, the hottest ticket at Pitt isn't just for basketball. Hear about another event that is sure to entertain this weekend.
And as Black History Month comes to an end, our team met with one club at Pittsburgh that is spreading racial justice awareness.
All that and more coming up.
back to Pitt to the Point. Now, Jamie, I heard you got a few dance moves up your sleeve. You care to show us?
I would now, but I think I should save it for after the show is over.
Looking forward to that.
Well, there's actually a dance club at Pitt Johnstown that is getting some buzz recently. They're called the Diamond Steppers, and as you can tell from the name, they're a step dance team.
I have heard about them, and they're getting prepared for a big show coming up next week in honor of Black History Month.
The Diamond Steppers dance team up at Pitt Bradford are performing on Friday night at the Cultural Fest in order to celebrate Black History Month.
The Diamond Steppers started like a few years back, and it's pretty new to the Bradford area, just stepping in general. And it's started as like a form of just creating community, especially for people of color on this campus, really having that bond with people from different backgrounds along the African diaspora. But it's also open to people who are not a part of the African diaspora, and it's basically educating and showcasing Black excellence on our campus. Having the ability to really use your body as a percussive instrument to express yourself, it's been a blessing. And with step, I know it originated in Africa. It was originally known as gumboot dancing from South Africa, and it was a way that people used it to communicate. So step really is about just leadership and like sisterhood and brotherhood and really coming together and making music with their bodies.
Our captain and our co-captain, very strong leaders, very supportive of us. Our team does well. Being a Diamond Stepper has been very beneficial to me, and just being able to meet new people.
If you happen to be in Bradford on Friday, make sure to stop down at the Bromley Theater from 7 to 9 to watch the Diamond Steppers perform. From Pitt to the Point, I'm your regional campus reporter, Paige Allen.
Now, if you're looking for another really fun event to go to this week that's actually taking place at Pittsburgh, go check out Pitt Tonight. Now, this is an amazing live comedy sketch show, and it's featuring special guests this week.
This week's guests for the show are mural artist Cameron Camo Nesbitt and the band Ugly. Pitt Tonight takes place tomorrow night at 7:30 in the Richard E. Ross Studio Theater. That's in the basement of the Cathedral of Learning.
And people can find tickets by scanning the QR code that is currently right back on the screen or going to our Instagram at Pitt Tonight.
So staying focused on honoring Black History Month with reference to our Diamond Steppers piece, our Clubbing at Pitt segment this week focuses on Pitt's Black Action Society.
This club meets each week to coordinate events and cater to the interests of undergraduate students regarding racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. And our team got to meet with them and find out more about what makes the Pitt Black Action Society so impactful.
It's the last week of February, Black History Month, where we share, celebrate, and understand the impact of Black history and culture. The Black Action Society is a club here at Pitt that acknowledges the value of diversity in the Black student body and recognizes the need for unity among Black students.
Black Action Society is the Black organization on campus that provides a safe space for students, whether that is academically, socially, culturally. We want to just provide a space for Black students to be and to get them engaged on campus and in the community.
The Black Action Society coordinates events, provides opportunities, and represents the interests of Black undergraduate students.
We have had events where we bring in speakers, so that looks like Kiki Palmer in the past, Angela Davis. So making sure that we're bringing in Black speakers who are kind of on a wide array of mediums. We also just host like fun events, so that could be like Family Feud, Jeopardy, kind of like Black History Month trivia type events, and then also educational events, so kind of discussing, Black activism, why is the Black vote important, the Black Lives Matter movement and how that is kind of shaping our college experience.
For more specific details on events and opportunities, students can go to the Black Action Society Twitter and Instagram to become more involved with this supportive and engaging organization.
It's no doubt that Pitt has an abundance of amazing alumni, from the toe-tappingly talented Gene Kelly to Mr. Good Morning Vietnam himself, Adrian Cronauer. Pitt is proud to be the institution that produces these icons.
From helping students get their own jump start right here at Pitt to dabbling in the world of film, our next alumni spotlight is not only helping others achieve their dreams, but following his as well.
My name is Matt Schultz, class of 2010, University of Pittsburgh. I majored in history, political science, and communications. I ended up applying for a job here at the Honors College, where I work right now. I've been here for over 12 years now. I really kind of had a identity crisis in some way, where the plan that I had from the time that I started college kind of disappeared, like it evaporated in front of me. It wasn't until one of my friends had asked me if I wanted to get involved in filmmaking. Realized, like, okay, maybe we can do this. I mainly do screenwriting and acting and producing. First it was more or less a hobby, and now I think we're exploring ways in which we're trying to turn it more into a living. The group of filmmakers that I work with is called Locust Street. That experience, it's not about the accumulation of knowledge, it's the experience of going through the exercise of finding a direction, plotting out the course, and then working your way through it. We are really just, professional amateur filmmakers, which is kind of where we started from.
Great stuff there. Now, how do you celebrate the arrival of 450 boxes of August Wilson's archives? Put on a play, of course.
Makes sense to me, and that's just what Pitt Stages is doing with their production of the Wilson play, 7 Guitars.
7 Guitars takes place in the Hill District in the late 40s. After the loss of an up-and-coming blues musician, a group of his friends gather to mourn him, all while finding out what led to his sudden death.
The play, which is part comedy, dark elegy, and mystery, runs through February 26th. Tickets are still on sale at play.pitt.edu.
KG Gilmer, the director of Pitt Stage's production of August Wilson's 7 Guitars, drew inspiration from August Wilson's archives in the university library system while preparing for the play. Any August Wilson play is big. It's a monster, and it takes a lot of people to get the show off the ground, Gilmer said. It takes a lot of commitment, time and collaboration between staff and students. Pitt Stages is presenting 7 Guitars, written by August Wilson.
Now, Josh, how often do you come across a store where everything is recycled and donated?
I'd never heard of such a store until we found out about this story. This store is making a name for themselves for sure through its nonprofit foundation and unique items. For more on this unique business, we turn to our city beat reporter, Jordan Sapp. Jordan?
Thank you. Now picture this, Josh. Aisles of tchotchke and bins of everything you can imagine. Located in Point Breeze, the Pittsburgh Center for Creative Reuse is turning one man's trash into another man's treasure.
So the Pittsburgh Center for Creative Reuse is a thrift store for arts and craft supplies. We're a nonprofit, which means that any money we make in the shop just goes back into our organization and fulfilling a mission to inspire creativity, conservation, and creative reuse through community engagement. And essentially that just means keeping materials out of the landfill. People will come in here just as fuel for their creativity, because you could see something that could spark an idea just completely out of nowhere. We also try to include examples throughout the shop of materials used in unconventional ways. Everything we have here is 100% donated, either by individuals or businesses. We really just don't know what to expect when it comes to what we have in stock. We have an entire bulk section of things that you can either purchase individually or fill a bag, and that's things that we just are constantly getting. I think my favorite thing about working here is the sense of community I feel. not only with my coworkers who are amazing and great, but also with customers. Like, we're all just thrilled to be saving these materials from going into the landfill and getting them back out into the community with like a low price point.
If you'd like to volunteer or donate, resources are available at Pittsburgh Center for Creative Reuse's website, pccr.org. For Pitt to the Point, I'm Jordan Sapp, the City Beat reporter. Now let's take it to Natalie Bellin, our entertainment reporter at the Lounge.
Pitt's spring concert season has officially sprung. Pitt Symphony Orchestra held a concert on Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023 at Belfield Hall Auditorium. The conductors were Roger Zahab and Emmanuel Burrito. A lot of practice and hard work goes into preparing for a concert. Attention to detail is key to making sure everything flows smoothly. As most musicians will tell you themselves, they do it for the love first and foremost.
My name is Emmanuel Burrito, also known as Manny. I am a composer and pianist and the graduate assistant of the Pitt Symphony Orchestra.
I've been at the University of Pittsburgh for 29 years. I have parallel careers as a violinist, conductor, composer, writer on music, and I teach various things in different institutions.
I was in charge of leading the Pitt Symphony for Schubert's first symphony, and it was a very special work for me. It takes me back from the time in which I was an undergrad, and when I suggested it to Roger, we both agreed that it was probably going to be a good experience for the students, and I think it was.
Many people will only choose or search for universities that have an orchestra that they can join. We have a wonderful band. We have an excellent, actually world-famous choir, Heinz Chapel Choir. And students choose the University of Pittsburgh partly because these ensembles are open to them, as well as jazz, the great jazz band, and opportunities for playing in smaller groups.
If you are looking for something to do this Sunday, Pitt Theater is performing their last show of August Wilson's 7 Guitars. Additionally, Pitt Symphonic Band is performing at Belfield Hall in the auditorium at 3 p.m. For future events, go to calendar.pitt.edu. For Pitt to the Point, I'm entertainment reporter Natalie Bellin. Jamie Job.
Good stuff as always, Natalie. Now, if you want to hear the latest updates on events such as 7 Guitars or Pitt Tonight or any other events that we've spoken about during the show, make sure to follow our social media platforms. You see them right there. We got Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, even Facebook. So you'd be crazy not to check it out. And I just want to say on behalf of everybody here at Pitt to the Point, thank you for joining us on not just today's Pitt to the Point, but all of them. We really hope you enjoyed today's show. This is our last show for me and Jamie as anchors, and it's been nothing short of an honor and a privilege to deliver the news to you. So thank you for your support, and continue to support, just like you supported us, our next anchors going forward.
I'd also like to thank again Dr. Timothy Milovanov, Chief James Loftus, and Jennifer Bruce for appearing live on the show today. I'd also like to thank the talented crew of students. And as Josh said, tune in next week. We'll have a fresh crew. Keep it tuned in to Pitt to the Point next week.